Good morning, and porridge again. I've only got a tiny bit left, unfortunately. I want to buy some more today, but never mind. But I'm thinking about woo, actually, right now. Take my hat because it's really hot in this kitchen. I'm thinking about woo, which, I mean, you'll know what woo is. It's usually treated as a pejorative term for unsupported ideas. But what I'm doing something slightly different in my head with it. I'm trying to think of it as a kind of genre, particularly a literary genre, a style of writing. And it's a style of I know it's often performed on video or in other kinds of means, turned into workbooks, that kind of thing. But I would say it's, as I say, I'm looking at it as a genre of a kind of writing primarily, with its own conventions and its own kind of histories, perhaps, its own tropes, that kind of thing. So, for example, it seems to me, when I look at what I recognise in a lot of the woo I've been looking at, and I can't say I've made an extensive study, is there's often a tendency to use the vocabulary of science, quantum theory, string theory, dark energy, whatever. You know, there's an approach to the vocabularies of science, maybe the vocabularies of technology, maybe even the vocabularies of medicine, and quite often vocabularies of medicine, actually, think about it, the kind of self-help end of woo, and maybe even engineering sometimes. I sometimes come across engineering language being used within this writing. But it's often combined with what I see as a kind of rhetorical style, a poetic style, if you like, that aspires to produce feelings in the reader associated with something like awe, or a kind of spiritual feeling. I'm not using that in a particularly accurate sense, but I hope you can get a sense of what I'm looking at that. And when I say a rhetorical style designed to produce certain effects, what I'm coming at there is a set of ideas and writings that come out of cognitive poetics, cognitive linguistics, which identify those kind of tendencies within poetry. And particularly within poetry associated with mysticism. It's quite a nice book by a guy called Ravent Sur, I think he's called something like On the Edge of Nothingness. I'll put the link in the description, where he basically takes dozens, hundreds of pieces of mystical writing and identifies within them strategies that the writer has used, which produce those kind of thoughts in our heads. Because all the time we're reading, we're generating ideas, some of which we're conscious of whilst we're generating, and some of them are operating behind the scenes in our non-conscious processing of that written information. And if you do it right, and this is what poets do essentially, if you do it right, then that can produce fully embodied effects of feelings, right? And we know that because poems make us cry or poems make us laugh. But on another level, poetry, poetic expressions, can give us that sense of far out, man, we say, spacey. You know what I mean? So, as I say, the woo writing, a lot of it at least, I think, has those two components. An appropriation, I would say, rather than an accurate use of science, medicine, technology, engineering kind of languages, STEM subject languages, I suppose, with, as I say, the rhetorical effects associated with mystical, spiritual poetics. Yeah. I'm thinking about, because I'm trying to invent some, actually. I'm quite interested in this. I'm trying to think, could I produce that? I'm not a poet, so I'm terrible at writing poetry. I have tried, I'm rubbish at it. But I'm very interested in how it works, particularly in these areas. So, but I'm trying to think of a kind of woo thought. You know what I mean? This is the nearest I've got. Tell me what you think. I'll try not to go on too long because my porridge is nearly done. But it's to do with space, really. If I was going to produce a piece of woo, it would be about space. Because I don't understand space, really. This stuff. I mean, I know there's lots of ways of understanding it. But I know that the way that Newton described it wasn't right. Yeah, he just sees space as the empty box in which objects and forces are at play. Yeah, and I know that was replaced by Einstein and Minkowski and all those other people who were you know, working 100 years ago on redefining all that in space-time terms. But I don't really understand that. I don't even come close to understanding that. So I don't understand what space is. But the way I think of it was, you know, if I was going to, how can I put this? If I was going to kind of write a database of this room, right? I'm just not going to try the universe. Universe is too big. But if I was going to database everything in this room, all of the, you know, all the atoms, all of the forces, all the properties of every particle, you know, make a completely accurate database which contain all this information. One of those columns would also be about space, right? Which might be about the space between different objects. Milk jug, sugar bowl, sugar container. It might be a bit of that. But what would that... So would that column just be about that? About relative distances? And if so, what is that? What is that? You know, what is that space stuff? And I don't mean it's the atmosphere, obviously, or the air. What about the spatial extension itself? What's being alluded to there? I don't know. So I would suggest, if I was in a Worcester frame of mind, I would want to consider space as I'd say space and consciousness. That's what I would do with that. I would probably draw on something like the integrated information theory of people like Tononi, where consciousness or cognitive processes like that anyway are associated with how complex something is, complex sets of integrated information, with the brain, which of course is the most complex thing in the known universe. And the significant aspect of that is not that it's got I don't know, quantum entanglements going on in the microtubules or some weird spooky roiling gas stuff permeating its membranes. I would say it's not that. What's happening there is that space itself, this stuff, space itself, is being conformed by the entangled forest that's in our heads. And it's the space itself and the organisation of that space into complex forms, which is kind of making a knot, which is knotting and folding up that consciousness space in a way that makes it appear like this to us, to me at least anyway. You know what I mean? So space itself is you can't look at, there's no point in looking around in space for consciousness, because space itself is consciousness, I would say. That's the medium. What do you think? Total bullshit. I don't know, maybe. I kind of half believe it, you know what I mean? That's the way with a lot of these ideas, isn't it? Once you start talking, think, well, maybe. At least I do anyway. Anyway, that's all really. I might think more about that and see if I can make a more full video just on the woo consciousness of space. But anyway, yeah, what do you think? Woo as a literary genre? What are the tropes of woo? Is it really STEM plus rhetorical flourish? Porridge is ready. Bye.